Captain Joho Kim stood on the bridge of the asterisk Dawn Whisper asterisk, his eyes fixed on the massive space station ahead. The Virith Conclave headquarters looked like a giant metal flower blooming in the darkness of space. Its 7 huge arms represented the 7 alien species that made up the conclave. Soon, humans might become the 8th. "Captain, we will dock in 20 minutes, said the pilot. Jai-Ho nodded. "Thank you. Alert the diplomatic team." He took a deep breath. This mission would decide if Earth joined the galactic community or stayed alone among the stars. The weight of billions of human lives rested on his shoulders and those of his team. Lieutenant Hanwell Park walked up beside him. He was tall with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "You seem worried, Captain," Hanwell said. "Just thinking about what's at stake," Jai-Ho replied. "What's the latest intel?" Hanwell frowned. "Not good. Our sources say the Virith think of humans as primitives. They may have agreed to these talks only to humor us. Then we'll have to change their minds," Jai-Ho said firmly. "The diplomatic team is ready, sir," came a voice from behind them. Jai-Ho turned to see a small woman standing quietly at the bridge entrance. Yun-Ju Lee was the team's cultural attaché. She had joined the mission just 2 days before launch. Her file was mostly blacked out, classified information that even Jai-Ho couldn't access. "Thank you, Ms. Lee," Jai-Ho said. "Will you join us for the final briefing?" Yun-Ju nodded. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Of course, Captain." Jai-Ho had noticed that Yun-Ju never raised her voice. She spoke so softly that people had to lean in to hear her. Yet somehow, she always made people listen. The 3 of them walked to the conference room where the rest of the diplomatic team waited. 5 experts in alien cultures, laws, and sciences sat around the table. All had impressive backgrounds. All except Yun-Ju, whose presence remained a mystery. "Let's go over the protocol one more time," Jai-Ho began. "Wei." The ship's communication system beeped loudly. "Captain, incoming message from the Virith station. Marked urgent." "Put it through," Jai-Ho ordered. A hologram appeared above the table. It showed a tall, reptilian alien with purple scales and 4 eyes. The Virith wore ornate armor that gleamed under the lights. "Human vessel asterisk, Dawn Whisper asterisk," the alien said, its voice deep and rumbling. "I am Chief Protocol Officer Kemba. There have been changes to tomorrow's meeting structure." Jai-Ho kept his face neutral. "What kind of changes, Officer Kemba?" "The Conclave High Council has decided that instead of the agreed private meeting, you will now present your case for Earth's membership in public before all 7 species representatives." Hanwell stiffened beside Jai-Ho. This was bad news. They had prepared for a small, controlled meeting where they could address concerns one by one. A public forum would be much harder to navigate. "That's a significant change with little notice," Jai-Ho said carefully. The Virith made a gesture that might have been a shrug. "The Conclave makes decisions as it sees fit. You will be given 10 minutes to present your case. The meeting begins 3 hours after your docking. Prepare accordingly." The hologram vanished before Jai-Ho could respond. "They're setting us up to fail," Hanwell said angrily. 10 minutes to explain why humanity deserves a place among the stars. It's an insult. The diplomats began talking all at once, their voices rising in concern and frustration. Through the noise, Jai-Ho noticed Yun-Ju sitting quietly. While everyone else looked worried, her face remained calm. When she felt his gaze, she looked up. "What do you think, Ms. Lee?" Jai-Ho asked. The room fell silent as Yun-Ju spoke in her soft voice. "They've shown their hand too early, Captain. They expect us to be unprepared and nervous." A small smile touched her lips. "Let them think that." Something in her quiet confidence made Jai-Ho stand straighter. "All right, people," he said to the team. "We have 3 hours to rewrite our approach. Let's show the Virith what humans can do when backed into a corner." As the team got to work, Jai-Ho wondered again who Yun-Ju Lee really was, and why she had been sent on this mission. One thing was becoming clear. There was more to the quiet woman than met the eye. The Grand Council chamber of the Virith Conclave stretched high above the human delegation. Curved walls rose to a dome painted with stars and strange planets. 7 raised platforms held the representatives of the 7 alien species. They sat on tall chairs that looked down on the flat area where the humans stood. Jaiho tried not to show his anger. The message was clear. The aliens were above and humans were below. A small, round alien wearing bright green robes stepped forward. The human delegation may take their seats. Jaiho looked at the chairs provided for them. They were much smaller and lower than those of the alien representatives. Another insult. "Thank you," Jaiho said politely, motioning for his team to sit. He noticed Yunju chose to stand slightly behind the group, watching everything with calm eyes. The largest platform held 3 Virith. Their purple scales caught the light as they moved. The one in the middle wore a golden helmet with 4 horns. This was the Supreme Speaker, leader of the conclave. "Humans of Earth," the Supreme Speaker said, voice booming through the room. "You have asked to join our conclave. We have agreed to hear your case, though many doubt your species is ready for such an honor." Jaiho stood and bowed. "Supreme Speaker, honored representatives, we thank you for this opportunity. Earth has much to offer the conclave, and much to learn from your wisdom." A sound like hissing came from several of the alien platforms. Jaiho realized they were laughing at him. "Pretty words," said a thin blue alien with 6 arms. "But what does Earth truly offer? Your technology is basic. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are primitive." Jaiho began explaining Earth's achievements in science, art, and philosophy. But after just 2 minutes, the Supreme Speaker raised a hand to stop him. "We have heard enough about human history. We will now meet each member of your delegation. They will state their name, role, and one reason why Earth deserves membership." This wasn't what they had prepared for. It was another trick to throw them off balance. One by one, the diplomats stood and spoke. When they finished, the aliens asked hard questions designed to make them look foolish. The human experts struggled to give good answers with so little time. Finally, only Yunju remained. She stepped forward, looking tiny in the massive chamber. "Your name and purpose," demanded the Supreme Speaker. "I am Yunju Li," she said in her whisper-soft voice, cultural attaché to the Earth delegation. "Speak up, human," shouted a Virith with a scar across his face. Jaiho recognized him as Zoltar, the conclave's security chief. "We cannot hear your weak voice." Several aliens laughed again, but Jaiho noticed something strange. Though Yunju spoke quietly, she never repeated herself, and somehow her words carried clearly through the chamber. "Earth deserves membership," Yunju continued softly, "because we understand something you have forgotten." The chamber grew silent as everyone strained to hear her. "And what is that?" asked the Supreme Speaker, leaning forward despite himself. "That true strength is not always loud." Yunju's eyes moved slowly across each alien representative, ending with Zoltar. She held his gaze without blinking. For a moment, the security chief looked uncomfortable. Then he slammed his fist down. "Enough. This human speaks in riddles because she has nothing of value to say." The Supreme Speaker nodded. "The human delegation will now leave. We will consider your request and call you back tomorrow for our decision." As they walked out, Hanel whispered angrily, "They never intended to give us a fair hearing. This was all for show." Jaiho nodded. "I know. What do we do now?" asked one of the diplomats. "Now," said Yunju, her quiet voice somehow cutting through their worry, "we wait for them to make their next mistake." Back in their quarters, Hanel paced back and forth. "They treated us like children. Did you see how they laughed?" "Yes," Yunju said. "They underestimate what they don't understand. That's our advantage." Jaiho looked at her closely. "You seem to recognize the security chief, Zoltar. And he seemed to know you." Eunju smiled but said nothing. Jai-ho was about to press further when their room's communication screen lit up. A message appeared. Human delegation. Prepare for private meeting with Security Chief Zoltar. 1 hour. Hanel frowned. What does he want? Jai-ho turned to ask Eunju, but the quiet woman was already gone. Jai-ho and Hanel waited nervously in the meeting room. Security Chief Zoltar was 10 minutes late. A clear power move. Where did Eunju go? Hanel whispered. She should be here. I don't know, Jai-ho replied. But I'm starting to think there's a lot about Ms. Lee that we don't know. The door hissed open. Zoltar walked in, his purple scales gleaming under the lights. He wore heavy armor with strange symbols, and a weapon hung at his side. 2 guard robots followed him. Captain Kim, Zoltar said, not bothering to bow or show any respect. Lieutenant Park, I see your cultural attaché is not here. Ms. Lee will join us shortly, Jai-ho said, though he had no idea if that was true. Zoltar made a sound that might have been a laugh. No matter. She is not important. He sat down across from them and placed a data tablet on the table. The conclave has decided to offer Earth a deal. Not membership, but a protection agreement. Protection? Hanel asked. From what? From the many dangers of space, Zoltar said with a smile that showed his sharp teeth. In exchange, Earth will provide resources, land for conclave bases, and workers for our ships. Jai-ho felt cold anger rise in him. This wasn't an offer of protection. It was colonization. That's not acceptable, Jai-ho said firmly. Earth comes as an equal partner, or not at all. Zoltar stood up suddenly, towering over Jai-ho. You are not in a position to refuse, human. Your planet is defenseless against our technology. Jai-ho stood his ground, but Zoltar moved closer, using his greater height to intimidate. The guard robots stepped forward. Perhaps I should show you what happens to those who defy the conclave, Zoltar growled. That would be unwise. The soft voice came from the doorway. Eunju stood there, small and calm. Zoltar's eyes narrowed. The quiet one returns. Eunju walked into the room and stood between Jai-ho and Zoltar. She didn't raise her voice or make any threatening moves. She simply stood there, looking up at the much larger alien. Something passed between them, some unspoken communication that Jai-ho couldn't understand. Then, to his surprise, Zoltar stepped back. You have 1 day to accept our offer, the security chief said, no longer looking at Eunju. After that, the protection agreement will become less favorable. He turned and left, the robots following him. What just happened? Hanel asked, staring at Eunju. How did you make him back down? Eunju smiled slightly. Some battles are won without a single blow. Where were you? Jai-ho demanded. And what do you know about Zoltar? I was learning the layout of the station, she replied. As for Zoltar, I know enough to recognize a bully who only respects strength. We need to contact Earth, Hanel said. Tell them about this protection offer. Jai-ho nodded and went to the communication panel. After a minute, he turned back with a grim face. Communications are blocked, he said. We can't send messages outside the station. We're prisoners, Hanel realized. Not prisoners, Eunju said softly. Just underestimated. That evening, Jai-ho found Eunju alone in the observation room, looking at the stars. I need answers, he said. Who are you really? Why are you on this mission? She turned to him. I served in a specialized division of Earth's defense forces. That's all I can tell you about my past. And why are you here now? Because sometimes, she whispered, the quietest person in the room is the one you should fear most. Jai-ho studied her face. You were sent here for a reason, not diplomacy. She didn't confirm or deny it. Captain, do you know the old Earth saying about speaking softly and carrying a big stick? He nodded slowly. Earth has been carrying its stick for a long time, waiting for the right moment. She looked back at the stars. The Virith think they're testing us. They don't realize we're also testing them. Testing them for what? Before she could answer, the station's lights flickered. A moment later, an alarm began to sound. Yeonju's expression didn't change. "It's starting," she said softly. "What's starting? What did you do?" She only smiled and whispered, "I didn't have to do anything. The Virith are doing it to themselves." Red lights flashed through the station corridors as Jaiho, Handel, and Yeonju hurried back to their quarters. Alien voices shouted orders over the speakers in several languages. "What's happening?" Jaiho asked as they reached their rooms. The rest of the diplomatic team was already there, looking worried. "Security breach," one of the diplomats said. "That's all we know." Handel turned to Yeonju with narrow eyes. "You said, it's starting. What did you mean by that?" Before she could answer, their doors slid open. 2 Virith guards stood there with weapons ready. "The Supreme Speaker demands your presence," one said. "All of you. Now." They were taken to a grand dining hall. 7 long tables formed a circle, one for each species of the conclave. In the middle was a smaller round table, clearly meant for the humans. The Supreme Speaker stood at the head of the Virith table. "Ah, our human guests arrive. Please, sit. We are having a special dinner to discuss your future with us." Jaiho noticed the other aliens watching them with a mix of curiosity and disdain. This was not a friendly dinner. It was a show of power. As they sat at the small table, servers brought strange foods and drinks. Jiho was surprised when Zoltar sat down across from him. "You should try the blue drink," Zoltar said with his sharp-toothed smile. "It's a Virith specialty." Handel reached for it, but Lunju's hand gently stopped him. "Perhaps later," she said softly. Zoltar's smile faded. He glared at Unju. The dinner went on with forced politeness. Jiho noticed Yeonju eating very little, her eyes constantly moving around the room, studying exits, watching guards. The Supreme Speaker stood and raised a glass. "To our human guests who think they are ready to join the stars." Such ambition from such a young species. Several aliens laughed. Jiho kept his face calm, though anger burned inside him. "We have decided," the Supreme Speaker continued, "that humans need guidance, not partnership. Tomorrow, we will announce Earth as a protected world under Virith control. For your own good, of course." Jaiho stood up. "Earth will never accept that. We came here as equals." "Equals?" The Virith ambassador at the next table laughed loudly. "You are primitives barely worth the oxygen you consume." Jaiho tried to respond, but the ambassador shoved him back into his seat. The alien was much stronger than he looked. "Know your place, human," the ambassador hissed. In the commotion, Jaiho didn't notice Yeonju had disappeared from the table. One moment she was there, the next she was gone. The Supreme Speaker was still talking about how humans would benefit from Virith rule when suddenly all the lights in the room turned blue and new alarms began to sound. "Security breach in Section 7A. A voice announced over the speakers. "Unauthorized access to the Central Archives." Zoltar jumped up, his hand going to his weapon. "The Central Archives? That's impossible. No one can break in there." The Supreme Speaker's 4 eyes widened. "The human files, the plans." All of the Virith rushed out, followed by the security guards. The other alien representatives looked confused. Just as suddenly as she had vanished, Yeonju reappeared at Jaiho's side. "We should return to our quarters," she whispered. "They'll be busy for quite some time." Back in their rooms, Hanwol grabbed Unju's arm. "What did you do?" "I did nothing," she said calmly, removing his hand. "But someone appears to have accessed the Virith's private files. Files that might contain their true plans for Earth." "And how would you know that?" Jaiho asked. Yeonju looked at him with those calm eyes. "Now they'll want to talk. Real negotiation begins when sides have equal information." You planned this, Jaiho realized. All of it. No, Captain, she whispered. I simply understood what would happen when proud bullies feel threatened. The door burst open. Zoltar stood there, rage in his four eyes. You, he snarled at Unju. The quiet one. I know it was you. Unju stepped forward, her voice as soft as ever. Prove it. Zoltar's face twisted with rage as he glared at Unju. You think I need proof? I am the security chief of the Virith Conclave. My word is enough. Not according to your own laws, Unju replied softly. Jaiho stepped forward. We don't know what happened, but I assure you my team had nothing to do with any security breach. Zoltar ignored him, his four eyes fixed on Unju. How did you do it? The archives are guarded by our best systems. Perhaps, Unju whispered, your systems are not as good as you think. More Virith guards arrived, filling the doorway. The Supreme Speaker appeared behind them, his golden helmet gleaming. The human delegation will be confined to these quarters until we complete our investigation, the Supreme Speaker announced. If we find proof of your involvement, the consequences will be severe. And our negotiations? Jaiho asked. Suspended, the Supreme Speaker said coldly. We do not negotiate with spies and thieves. Unju took a small step forward. Though she was half the size of the Supreme Speaker, something in her stance made everyone in the room focus on her. That is unfortunate, she said in her quiet voice. Especially since the files that were accessed reveal your true plans for Earth. The Supreme Speaker went very still. What are you talking about? The Virith never intended to accept Earth as an equal member, Unju continued. You plan to declare our planet a developing world and place it under your direct control. You would take our resources and use our people as workers on your ships and colonies. Lies, Zoltar shouted. But Jaiho saw the truth in the Supreme Speaker's reaction. The alien's upper eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of stress that the human diplomats had learned about. The other conclave species might be interested to know how you've treated previous developing worlds, Unju said, and how many of them mysteriously suffered disasters after refusing Virith protection. The room went quiet. Even the guards looked at their leaders with uncertainty. You have no proof, the Supreme Speaker said, but his voice had lost its confidence. The proof was in your own archives, Unju replied, and now copies exist elsewhere. Zoltar stepped toward her, hand on his weapon. This human is dangerous. She should be arrested immediately. Unju looked directly at him. I challenge you to Krivek. The words hung in the air. The Virith guards stepped back in shock. The Supreme Speaker's mouth fell open. Impossible, Zoltar finally said. How do you even know of Krivek? It is an ancient Virith tradition. I know many things, Unju replied, including that by your most sacred laws, you cannot refuse this challenge. Jaiho had no idea what Krivek was, but he could see it had shaken the Virith deeply. The Supreme Speaker and Zoltar spoke quickly in their own language. Finally, the Supreme Speaker turned to Unju. You invoke laws you cannot understand, human. Krivek is a trial of skill and strength that dates back to the beginning of our civilization. No outsider has ever been permitted to participate. Yet your laws state that any being who invokes Krivek correctly cannot be denied, Unju said. The Supreme Speaker's eyes narrowed. Very well. The challenge is accepted. Zoltar will face you in the Krivek arena tomorrow. When you lose, and you will lose, your entire delegation will be imprisoned for their crimes against the Conclave. After the Virith left, Hanwell exploded. What have you done? What is this Krivek? It's a trial, Unju explained calmly. 3 tests of combat, strategy, and endurance. And you challenged their security chief. Jaiho couldn't believe it. He's 3 times your size. Unju smiled slightly. Size isn't everything, Captain. How do you even know about this Krivek? Jaiho asked. I studied the Varith for years before this mission, she replied. Their history, culture, laws, especially their most secret ones. They respect only strength, Captain. Diplomatic words mean nothing without actions to back them up. Jaiho stared at her. Who are you really? Eunju's eyes were calm but determined. I will face their champion, she whispered. And they will learn that human quietness is not human weakness. The Krivik Arena was a large round room deep inside the station. Hundreds of aliens from all 7 conclave species filled the viewing areas. News of a human challenging the Virith to Krivak had spread quickly. Jaiho and the rest of the human delegation sat in a small section near the arena floor. They watched nervously as Eunju stood alone in the center of the room. She wore a simple black outfit that seemed to be made of a special material. Her face was calm. Across from her, Zoltar entered to loud cheers from the Virith. He wore ceremonial armor and carried an energy staff that glowed with purple light. He looked twice as tall and 3 times as heavy as Eunju. The Supreme Speaker stood and raised his hands for silence. Today we witness Krivak, the sacred trial of our ancestors, he announced. Security Chief Zoltar will face the human Eunju in 3 challenges: combat, strategy, and endurance. He looked down at Eunju with 4 eyes that showed no kindness. The human has invoked our ancient laws, but laws cannot help those who lack strength. Zoltar stepped forward, spinning his energy staff in a show of skill. The crowd cheered again. Begin the combat phase, the Supreme Speaker commanded. Zoltar immediately rushed at Eunju, swinging his staff in a powerful arc. Many in the crowd leaned forward, expecting to see the small human crushed instantly. But Eunju wasn't there when the staff came down. She had moved, so quickly that Jaiho barely saw it happen. She now stood slightly to the left, watching Zoltar with calm eyes. Zoltar growled and attacked again. And again, Eunju moved just enough to avoid the blow. She never jumped or rolled dramatically. Her movements were small, precise, and used minimal energy. Fight back, coward, Zoltar shouted, his frustration growing. Eunju said nothing. She continued to avoid his attacks with an eerie calmness that began to unsettle the watching aliens. Some of them started whispering to each other. When Zoltar charged a 3rd time, Eunju finally moved toward him instead of away. Her hand struck in a blur, quick, precise touches at specific points on Zoltar's body. Then she stepped back. Zoltar raised his staff for another attack, but suddenly his right arm wouldn't move properly. He stared at it in shock. What did you do? He demanded. Eunju remained silent. Her fighting style seemed to combine several earth martial arts with something else entirely, movements Jaiho had never seen before. The combat continued. Zoltar grew more aggressive, but also sloppier. Eunju never wasted motion, never showed off, never made a sound. She touched him 5 more times in different places. After each touch, another part of Zoltar's body worked less effectively. Finally, Zoltar could barely lift his staff. Eunju stepped close and, with one small push, sent him falling to the floor. The arena went completely silent. Combat phase complete, announced the Supreme Speaker, his voice tight with anger. Prepare for the strategy phase. Assistants helped Zoltar to his feet. The feeling was already returning to his limbs. How did she do that? Handel whispered to Jaiho. I've never seen fighting like that. Neither have they, Jaiho replied, nodding toward the alien spectators. Many were leaning forward now, watching Eunju with new interest. For the strategy phase, a complex 3-dimensional puzzle appeared in the center of the arena. It showed star systems, ships, and resources, a simulation of space warfare. The objective is to capture your opponent's home base while protecting your own, the Supreme Speaker explained. Zoltar smiled confidently. This was his area of expertise. But as the simulation progressed, Eunju's approach baffled everyone. Instead of attacking or building strong defenses, she created a complex network of small, seemingly unimportant positions. Only Jaiho, with his military background, began to see her strategy. She's not playing to win quickly, he realized aloud. She's making a trap. Sure enough, when Zoltar finally launched his major attack, Yeonju's network closed around his forces like a silent web. His pieces were isolated, cut off, and defeated one by one. When it ended, whispers spread through the arena again. Now they weren't laughing at the quiet human. They were wondering what else she might be capable of. The final phase will begin, the Supreme Speaker announced. His voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. The endurance test. 2 platforms rose from the arena floor. Yeonju stepped onto one, while Zoltar, looking angry and worried, climbed onto the other. The gravity will increase on both platforms, explained the Supreme Speaker. The last one standing wins. The test began. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then Jihom noticed Zoltar's shoulders begin to sag. The increased gravity was pressing down on him. Yet, Yeonju stood straight, showing no signs of discomfort. How is she doing this? Hanel whispered. Virith come from a high-gravity world. She should be struggling more than him. As the gravity increased, Zoltar began to bend forward. Sweat dripped from his scales. His breathing became heavy. Still, Yeonju stood calmly, as if nothing was happening. The other aliens were all watching now. Even those who had ignored the earlier phases were paying attention. Something very unusual was happening. When the gravity reached 4 times Earth normal, Zoltar fell to one knee. The Virith in the audience murmured in shock. Their champion was losing to a human, a species they had called weak. Stop this, Zoltar finally gasped. She's not human. She can't be. The Supreme Speaker raised his hand, and the gravity returned to normal. Zoltar collapsed fully, breathing hard. Yeonju stepped off her platform, and to everyone's surprise, helped Zoltar to his feet. This simple act of kindness toward a defeated opponent confused the watching Virith even more. The arena fell silent as Yeonju turned to face the Supreme Speaker. For the first time, she raised her voice above a whisper, though she still spoke softly. Somehow, everyone could hear her clearly. I will now speak, and you will all listen, she said. The Supreme Speaker started to object, but something in Yeonju's eyes made him stop. Humanity discovered Virith scout ships on Earth 20 years ago, she revealed, long before official contact was made. Gasps came from many aliens. Zoltar's eyes widened. We did not confront them, Yeonju continued. We studied them instead. We learned your languages, your technology, your cultures. We prepared for this meeting far longer than you realize. The Supreme Speaker's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. Impossible. Our ships were not detected. Yet they were, Yeonju said simply, just as we detected the ships you sent to 6 other developing worlds before ours, worlds that refused your protection and later suffered mysterious disasters. Delegates from other species turned to stare at the Virith leaders. This was clearly news to them. Your archives contained proof of these actions, Yeonju said. That information has now been shared with all conclave species. You have no right, the Supreme Speaker shouted. I have every right, Yeonju replied calmly. Earth will not be your next victim. She turned in a slow circle, addressing all the alien representatives. I am not unique. I am merely one expression of humanity's quiet strength. We speak softly because we value words. When those fail, she left the sentence unfinished, but everyone understood the meaning. Then she turned back to Zoltar, who was staring at her with new understanding. You were modified, he said quietly. Enhanced. Yeonju nodded. After we found your ships, Earth prepared. Some of us volunteered for a special program to become stronger, faster, more resilient. We knew we might need to prove ourselves not with words, but with actions. Why did you help me up? Zoltar asked, confused. "I would not have done the same for you." "That," Yunju said with a small smile, "is the difference you fail to understand about humans. Our strength is not just in our bodies or our technology. It's in how we choose to use that strength." The Supreme Speaker stood up. "The Krivak is over. The human has won. By our laws, her delegation must be released," and he hesitated, then added reluctantly, "and her words must be heard." As the aliens filed out of the arena, many looked at the humans with new eyes. The whispers now were not of primitive beings, but of a species far more dangerous and far more interesting than anyone had realized. The human delegation was moved from their small quarters to a large suite meant for honored guests. The change was sudden but clear. The Virith were now treating them with respect. Jaiho sat in the main room, reading a file on his tablet. His eyes widened as he scrolled through the information. "This is your complete file," he said to Unju, who stood by the window looking at the stars. "They just sent it to me." "Yes," she replied softly. "The Supreme Speaker decided you should know who I really am." The file explained everything. Yunju was part of Earth's Silent Response Program, specialists trained to represent humanity's interests in ways that went beyond words. These people combined physical enhancement, strategic thinking, and deep knowledge of alien cultures. "You're not just a cultural attaché," Jaiho said. "You're I don't even know what to call it." "I am exactly what Earth needed me to be," she answered simply. Hanel was still trying to understand what had happened. "So Earth knew about the Virith for years. We were never as helpless as they thought." "Correct," Yunju said. "When their scouts came, we could have shot them down. Instead, we let them watch us while we secretly watched them. We learned their technology, their weak points, their true intentions." "But why send you on this mission?" Jaiho asked. "Why not just tell the Virith what we knew from the beginning?" "Because knowledge is power only when used at the right moment," Yunju explained. "We needed to understand who we were really dealing with." A soft chime sounded at the door. When it opened, Zoltar stood there alone, without weapons or guards. He looked different, humbler. "May I speak with you?" he asked Unju. Privately. Jaiho didn't like it, but Yunju nodded. "It's okay, Captain. This conversation needs to happen." They went to a small meeting room attached to the suite. Through the glass wall, Jaiho could see them talking, but couldn't hear their words. Inside the room, Zoltar spoke with new respect in his voice. "You bested me fairly," he said. "No one has done that in many years." "It was not about winning or losing," Yunju replied. "It was about showing the truth." Zoltar nodded slowly. "I must tell you something important, something I didn't know until recently." He lowered his voice. "The Virith are not the true leaders of the Conclave." Yunju's expression didn't change, but she listened carefully. "There is an eighth species," Zoltar continued. "They stay hidden, pulling strings from the shadows. They call themselves the Kevnar. They have been using us to conquer worlds and expand their influence." "I suspected something like this," Yunju whispered. "The files I accessed showed strange gaps in decision-making. Orders coming from nowhere. Yes, they wanted Earth because your planet has something they need. A rare mineral deep in your oceans." Zoltar looked ashamed. "We were going to help them take it." "And now?" Yunju asked. "Now many of us question their control," Zoltar said. "Your challenge has done more than you know. It has made us think about our place in their plans." When Yunju returned to the main room, she explained everything to Jaiho and Hanul. "So there's a secret eighth species controlling everything?" Hanul asked in disbelief. "Yes," Yunju said. "And that was my true mission all along, to find proof of their existence." Jaiho stared at her. "You knew?" "Earth's leaders suspected," she explained. "Strange patterns in conclave decisions, policies that made no sense. Someone else was pulling the strings. What do we do with this information?" Jaiho asked. Yunju's eyes were determined. We bring the truth to light, she whispered. Tomorrow, at the final council meeting, we will show all conclave species who has really been controlling them. Will they believe us? Handel asked. They will, Yunju said, because sometimes the greatest diplomacy is simply bringing truth to light. The Grand Council chamber was filled with representatives from all 7 conclave species. The mood was tense. News of the human victory in Krivak had spread throughout the station. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. This time, the human delegation was given proper seats, raised to the same level as the other species. It was a small but important sign of respect. The Supreme Speaker opened the session. We are here to discuss Earth's place in the galactic community. After recent events, we are prepared to offer humans equal membership in the conclave. Murmurs of surprise filled the room. Such a complete change of position was unusual. Jaiho stepped forward to speak, but Yunju gently touched his arm. He nodded and stepped back. For the first time, Yunju walked to the center of the chamber. The room fell silent as everyone leaned forward to hear the quiet human who had defeated their champion. But when she spoke, her voice was different. It rang out clear and strong, filling the chamber without any strain. People of the conclave, she said, I thank you for this offer. But before Earth can accept, you must all know the truth about who really controls your decisions. The Supreme Speaker started to interrupt, but Yunju continued, her voice cutting through his objection. For years, an 8th species has manipulated the conclave from the shadows. They call themselves the Kevinar. They have used the Virith to conquer worlds and expand their influence while remaining hidden. Shock spread through the chamber. Representatives from various species began talking all at once. Some looked confused. Others looked angry. A few nodded as if this confirmed old suspicions. This is nonsense, shouted a voice from a dark corner of the room. A tall figure in a hooded robe stepped forward. This human speaks lies to divide us. Yunju smiled slightly. I wondered if you would show yourself, Ambassador Telvos. Or should I call you by your real name and species? She tapped a control on her wrist. Suddenly, images appeared in the air above her. Secret files, recordings, and communications. They showed the hooded figure meeting with Virith leaders, giving orders, discussing plans to take Earth's resources. These files were in the Virith archives, Yunju explained. They show how the Kevinar have been using the conclave for their own purposes, how they plan to strip Earth of a rare mineral found in our deep oceans. The hooded figure hissed and reached inside his robe. But before he could pull out a weapon, Zoltar was there, restraining him. The hood fell back, revealing a face unlike any of the known species. Pale blue skin with no eyes, just sensory pits where eyes should be. A Kevinar, Zoltar announced, just as the human said. Chaos erupted in the chamber as security officers surrounded the revealed Kevinar. Representatives shouted questions and demands. When order was finally restored, the Supreme Speaker looked shaken. It seems we have all been deceived, he admitted, including the Virith. He turned to the human delegation. Earth has done the conclave a great service by revealing this truth. We offer not just membership, but our sincere apology. Jaiho stepped forward. Earth accepts your apology and your offer of membership with one condition, that the conclave be reformed to ensure all species have equal standing, regardless of technological advancement or military might. The Supreme Speaker nodded. Agreed. We have much to learn from humans, it seems. As the meeting ended with plans for a new beginning, Handel turned to Yunju. You're speaking at normal volume now. Why? Yunju smiled and returned to her whisper. I spoke softly so they would lean in to listen. Now that I have their attention, my actions can speak for humanity. She looked out at the stars through the chamber windows. And sometimes, Lieutenant, the quietest revolution is the most complete. 1 week later, the Dawn Whisper departed the station, carrying Earth's newest allies and the promise of a more honest galaxy. Aboard the ship, Yeonju returned to her quiet ways, but now everyone understood the strength behind her silence.